and welcome to Geeky Bit. Today in tech history, I'd like to talk about floppy disks. The early floppy disks were developed by IBM in the late 60s, and the first use of the word floppy disk was in 1970. The first floppy disk was of course an 8-inch across disk. By 1976, Sugar Associates introduced the first 5 1/4 floppy, and by 1980, Sony created the 3 1/2 floppy, and there were alternatives like the zip drive and Bernoulli box. In 2003, Iomega was giving the floppy its last stand in the Zip Disk 750. While it never got traction due to the fact DVD recordable drives came out later that year. While there isn't a large storage format floppy to this day, you can still buy USB floppy drives that are compatible with 3 1/2-inch floppies. The floppy standard ranged from 8-inch all the way down to 3 1/2 inches in physical size, and from a few kilobytes all the way up to 750 megabytes, and there were several floppies for several different kinds of computers. So let's take a quick look at a few types of floppy drives and disks. So this right here is an internal 3 1/2-inch floppy disk drive, and this right here is an external 5 1/4-inch disk drive for Apple computers. And here are a few 3 1/2-inch floppy disks. With all of that out of the way, let's talk about my story with floppy disks. The first floppy disk I ever got to use was a 3 1/2-inch floppy disk, and it came with our IBM PS2 computer. But the most exciting use came in 1997 when I got to use a special program for floppy disk manipulation. So me and my friends, we would share files we downloaded because the early internet was a slow thing, and not all of us had zip drives or portable hard drives, so we did have to use floppies. My friend Marcus and I found a program that let you format a 1.44 megabyte floppy drive to 2.88 megabytes. While it made the floppies less reliable, it allowed for more space per floppy. Of course, not all floppy drives would read those disks either, but my friend Levi's computer read them fine. He was shocked when I brought over a floppy and it had 2.88 megabytes on it. After that, our social group used those large format floppy disks to share files between each of us each day at school. We could trade those disks. Sadly, the Macs at school couldn't read them, and we couldn't use the school's high-speed internet to download files. So here are my thoughts about floppy disks. Floppies were a big part of my childhood and teen years. However, they are just not practical anymore. But things like SD cards have found their way into replacing floppies as a modern alternative. I hope you enjoyed this video as much as I did making it. And if so, feel free to click that like button. And if you're not subscribed so already, feel free to do so. And if you'd like to get notifications of future videos, click that bell button.